The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Empire was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose so high it faded into shadow, and its walls were lined with banners showing victories from thousands of years ago. Alien nobles filled the upper tiers, their eyes cold and curious. Armored guards stood in perfect lines. Unmoving as statues, at the center of the hall stood General Lara Bennett. She wore a simple dark uniform, clean and without decoration. Compared to the jeweled armor and flowing robes around her, she looked plain. That was exactly how the Empire wanted her to look. Lara was the highest-ranking military officer Earth had sent. She had been chosen not because she enjoyed politics, but because she did not fear pressure. Her face was calm, her back straight, and her hands rested loosely at her sides. She did not bow. She did not look away. Across from her sat Emperor Victor, Hale on his raised throne. He was a large man with sharp eyes and a practiced smile. His throne was made of metal taken from conquered worlds, each plate engraved with a name long erased from history. Hale leaned forward slightly, studying Lara as if she were an object rather than a person. "This," the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the hall, "is humanity's finest?" Soft laughter moved through the crowd. Lara said nothing. She had been warned this would happen. The Galactic Empire had ruled for centuries, by breaking spirits before breaking armies. Insults came first. Humiliation followed. Resistance usually ended before war ever began. Emperor Hall stood from his throne and began to walk down the steps. Each step was slow and deliberate. "Your species rose quickly," he continued. "Too quickly. You built ships before you understood your place. You crossed stars without permission." He stopped only a few feet from her. Lara could smell the sharp metal scent of his armor. She met his gaze without flinching. "You stand here," Hale said, "because we allow it. Earth exists because we find it useful." Behind Lara, human officers stood silent. One of them, Commander Daniel Brooks, felt his jaw tighten. He knew Lara well enough to see the warning signs. Her stillness was not fear. It was control. The Emperor circled her slowly. No genetic superiority. No ancient empire. No divine claim, Hale said. Just stubborn creatures who refuse to understand when they have lost. He stopped in front of her again. "Tell me, General," he asked, "do humans truly believe they are equal to us?" Lara spoke at last. Her voice was steady and clear. "Humans believe in survival," she said. "And in respect?" The word respect caused another wave of laughter. Hale's smile faded. "Respect," he repeated. "You have not earned that." He turned toward the audience, raising one hand. "Behold the arrogance of a minor species," he announced. "They think shared air makes them our peers." The guards did not move. The rules of the hall allowed the Emperor complete authority. Lara felt the weight of millions of eyes on her. She thought of Earth, of cities under blue skies, of soldiers who trusted her judgment, of history lessons about empires that believed themselves eternal. Hale turned back to her, his face hard. "You will kneel," he said quietly. "Here, now." Lara did not move. The silence stretched out for the first time. Uncertainty rippled through the crowd. Humans were supposed to obey by now. Hale's hand moved without warning. The sound echoed through the hall. It was not loud, but it was clear. The Emperor had struck her across the face. Lara's head turned slightly with the force, and a thin line of red appeared at the corner of her mouth. She remained standing. She did not stagger. She did not fall. The hall went silent. Some aliens leaned forward. Others looked away. A few smiled. Commander Brooks took a step forward before another officer stopped him. This was not a battlefield. This was a trap. Lara slowly turned her head back to face the Emperor. Her expression had not changed. Hale watched her closely. expecting tears, anger, or fear. Any reaction would confirm his control. You see? He said to the audience. Even now, she knows better than to fight. Laura wiped the blood from her lip with the back of her hand. She looked at it briefly, then lowered her hand. She did not speak. The Emperor's confidence returned. He raised his voice again. Let this be remembered, he declared. Humanity stands here by our mercy, and mercy can be withdrawn. The crowd began to murmur. The lesson was supposed to be over, but Laura's silence was not surrender. It was the calm before a decision. She straightened her uniform slowly, deliberately. Her eyes lifted, no longer focused only on the Emperor, but on the entire hall. Something shifted in the air. Even those who hated humans felt it. This was not the look of defeat. This was the look of someone who had reached a line that could not be crossed, and the Galactic Empire had just crossed it. The hall remained tense after the Emperor's strike. Every eye in the room was fixed on General Lara Bennett. The Empire had expected fear, or at least humiliation. Instead, they saw only calm. A calm so complete it made the audience uncomfortable. Laura's breathing was steady. She touched the corner of her mouth where the Emperor's hand had landed, not with anger, but with quiet calculation. She did not speak, and that silence was louder than words. Commander Daniel Brooks, standing a few paces behind her, could feel the weight of the entire Galactic Empire pressing down, yet she did not bend. Is she? Muttered one of the alien nobles. The words trailed off. The question hung in the air. Is this human brave or foolish? Lavra thought back to Earth, to the years that had shaped her. She remembered the drills, the battles, the endless simulations designed to break soldiers who thought they could withstand pressure. She had survived them all. She had learned that power often came from stillness, from knowing exactly when to act. She understood timing. And right now, every second counted. The Emperor straightened, trying to regain control. His pride had been bruised in front of the assembly. A human who could not be intimidated was unheard of. Hale was used to bending worlds and minds with a word or a gesture. Nothing worked on Lavra. That stung more than the blood at her lip. General Bennett, he said, his voice low but firm. You will kneel and acknowledge your place. Laura's eyes narrowed slightly. Not in fear, not in anger, but in focus. The hall was silent again. She could feel the tension in every corner. Even the guards seemed to hesitate, unsure if they should intervene. Protocol did not cover this. Nobody had ever stood like this before. She remembered the stories her father had told her. Not fairy tales, but lessons in courage. People will underestimate you, he had said. They will expect you to obey. But sometimes standing still is the first act of defiance. It was true. Every creature in the room underestimated humans. They thought of them as fragile, disorganized, and limited. But humans had survived worse than an empire with stars under its control. Humans had adapted, survived, and sometimes they had won against impossible odds. Lavra knew the Emperor was about to discover exactly what that meant. Nearby, Commander Brooks whispered to another officer, I've never seen her like this. She's calculating. She's not afraid, the officer replied. Not even a little. The Emperor paced slowly. He liked to intimidate through movement, to show that the universe bent to his will. He stepped closer to Lara, leaning down slightly to emphasize his height. You are small, he said. Weak, yet you stand. Do you believe that is enough? Lara did not reply. Instead, she let her eyes sweep over the hall. Every noble, every officer, every alien delegate saw the same thing. She was not human in her size, but she was human in her resolve. She was still. She was patient. She was ready. The Emperor, growing impatient, raised a hand again. The gesture was meant to threaten. Laura's mind moved faster than anyone in the room could perceive. She remembered every lesson in strategy, every simulation she had endured. Every motion, every pause, had a purpose. She thought of Earth's fleet waiting in orbit. They trusted her. They believed in her. She could not fail them, not here, not now. Hale's voice echoed across the hall. "Do you understand that defiance is death?" Laura finally spoke. Her voice was calm, firm, and even, "Defiance is not death. Sometimes it is survival. Sometimes it is the first step toward freedom." The hall went quiet again. Not a single being moved. Some aliens shifted uneasily. The Emperor's guards glanced at one another. It was rare that a human spoke with such control and clarity, especially after being struck. "You speak as if you have power," Hale said, his tone sharp. "But you are only a human. You are nothing." Laura's eyes did not leave his. She had studied him, watched his reactions, noted every habit. She knew that pride was his weakness. He would never attack first if it risked embarrassment. That gave her the edge. A subtle shift occurred in the room. The guards hesitated, and whispers began to rise among the nobles. Some were fascinated, some were horrified. They had expected a display of obedience. Instead, they witnessed patience, courage, and defiance. Laura thought of the countless times humans had been underestimated. On Earth, during conflicts and disasters, she had seen ordinary people achieve extraordinary things. She remembered a mission where a small squad had outmaneuvered a larger force because they remained calm and used their minds instead of brute strength. That lesson was now relevant here. Hale's face reddened. His usual composure was cracking. This human woman did not fear him. Worse, she did not even flinch. His attempts to dominate, to humiliate, were failing. "Do you not understand your place?" he demanded, louder this time. "I understand perfectly," Laura replied. "My place is here, standing. And your place is to recognize that humans do not kneel unless they choose to." The silence that followed was heavier than any physical attack could be. Delegates leaned forward. Some whispered to one another. The guards glanced at Hal, waiting for a signal. The Emperor, who had faced countless rebellions and uprisings, was struggling to regain control of a room with one human standing silently. Laura could feel the history of her people behind her, the struggles and victories that had led her to this moment. Every soldier she had trained, every mission she had commanded, every lesson she had learned, it all mattered now. The Empire had made a critical mistake. They had assumed she would obey. They had assumed that humans could be intimidated. They had assumed that pride alone was enough to crush her. It was not. For the first time, Laura allowed a faint edge of anger to show, not at the Emperor, but at the arrogance that believed humans were weak. She was no longer just a representative of Earth's military. She was a symbol. She was the proof that underestimation could be fatal. The hall was holding its breath. Every whisper, every glance, every step was charged with tension. The Empire had expected obedience, but what they had encountered was something entirely different. A human who refused to bow, refused to break, and refused to be dismissed. And in that moment, Laura Bennett became more than a general. She became a force that the Galactic Empire had never considered humanity in its purest, most determined form. The Emperor's face hardened. He took a slow, deliberate step back. He could not strike again without losing face. The crowd noticed, and murmurs spread. He had been challenged, and the challenge had been met with calm, precision, and absolute control. Laura remained still. She did not smile. She did not speak. But she had made her point. And the Empire, vast and powerful as it was, had never underestimated humanity. Until now, The hall was heavy with silence. Every delegate, human and alien alike, had frozen. They had never seen a human stand unmoved in front of Emperor Victor Hall, and now every eye was fixed on General Laura Bennett. She remained perfectly still, her hands at her sides, her posture straight, her eyes locked on the Emperor. Hale's face had darkened. He was not used to being ignored, let alone challenged in front of the entire Galactic Assembly. Pride, which had always been his armor, now felt brittle. His advisors whispered among themselves, but their words carried no authority here. None of them had the courage or the wisdom to intervene. That Lavra knew what the Emperor expected. He expected fear, submission, or at least hesitation. Instead, she had given him silence, a quiet strength that unsettled him more than words or weapons ever could. Every second stretched, heavy and sharp, as though time itself had slowed to watch what would happen next. Commander Daniel Brooks, standing a few steps behind her, felt the tension crackle in the air. He had seen Lavra act decisively in battle before, but never like this. This was not about strategy on a battlefield. This was about proving a point in front of the most powerful being in the galaxy. Hal took a deep breath, then moved closer, lowering his voice. "You are brave, human. Or foolish. I cannot tell which. But understand this. The Empire does not forgive insolence." Laura's voice, calm but firm, carried through the hall. "The Empire may punish insolence, but it cannot punish courage. Not if courage is earned and necessary." The assembly shifted uneasily. Some whispered. Some glanced nervously at the guards. Even those who had long supported the Emperor began to question their assumptions. This was not what they expected. They were accustomed to watching other species cower, to seeing obedience crushed with a word or a gesture. But Laura's composure suggested something else, a threat they could not ignore. Hale's fists clenched. He had faced rebellions before, but never so directly, so personally. A single human, small, unarmored, standing alone, was defying him in a way that seemed impossible. "You are a minor species," he said through gritted teeth. "You have no right to speak to me this way." "I have the right to stand," Lavra replied, her voice unwavering, "and the right to defend what is mine. The lives of my people, the dignity of my species. You have underestimated humanity, and it is a mistake you will regret." The Emperor's face twisted in anger. The room sensed a breaking point. Guards shifted uneasily, ready to act if Hale commanded. Alien nobles leaned forward, sensing that the story they had come to witness was changing before their eyes. This was no longer a display of imperial power. This was a test of limits, and Lavra Bennett was setting them. Hal stepped closer, raising a hand as if to strike again. His gesture was sudden, meant to intimidate and remind everyone that he was in control. But Laura did not flinch. She had trained her body to react instinctively, and her mind had analyzed every movement of the Emperor in advance. She knew what he expected, a reaction of fear, surprise, or hesitation. She allowed herself a small, precise motion. Her hand shot out, not with anger, but with trained skill. In one movement, she deflected the strike, controlling the force with precision she had practiced countless times. The room gasped. Hale staggered slightly, surprised. He had never been confronted with someone who could react so quickly, so accurately. For the first time in his life, he faced resistance that was not based on fear but on skill, calculation, and sheer determination. Laura stepped forward, her voice calm but carrying authority. "Your power is not absolute. You are a ruler, yes, but no ruler can command respect by fear alone. Humans and others who seek freedom will not bend to threats that ignore courage." The assembly was silent again, but now the silence was different. It was filled with tension, respect, and fear. Not fear of the human, but fear of what had just happened, The emperor had been challenged, and the challenge had not only survived, but triumphed in front of everyone. Hale's advisors whispered urgently. Some spoke of calling in reinforcements, others of restraining the general, but none dared to move. The emperor's pride and position were at stake. He could not strike her again without revealing weakness. Yet she remained perfectly composed, unyielding, and aware of every possibility. Laura's eyes scanned the hall, noting every observer, every guard, every noble. She had become more than a general. She had become a symbol of human capable of standing against an empire that had never been questioned so openly. "You will see," she said quietly, almost to herself. "That underestimation is dangerous." Hale's face turned red. His hand twitched, but he did not strike. He could not. The room would never allow it. The assembly witnessed the moment where absolute power was questioned. Even the guards, trained to obey without thought, hesitated. This human had done what none had imagined possible. Daniel Brooks's heart pounded. He knew what Lavra was capable of, but even he was amazed at her control. She had not only defended herself, but had shown the Emperor and the galaxy that humans could not be treated lightly. The alien nobles shifted. Some whispered about alliances and rebellions, about how one human had altered the perception of an entire species. The Galactic Empire had believed itself untouchable, unchallenged, and eternal. In that moment, their illusion shattered. Hale's eyes narrowed. He took a step back, his voice lower but still commanding. "You are fortunate that you have survived this encounter." Laura's response was calm, almost casual, but firm. "Survival is not luck. It is preparation, discipline, and understanding your enemy. And you, Emperor, have underestimated humanity." The hall remained silent, but now it was a charged silence. Everyone knew something historic had happened. The balance of perception had shifted. The Emperor's authority had not been broken physically, but it had been challenged in a way that no one in the room would forget. Laura's mind remained clear. She knew this was only the beginning. The Emperor had been shown that humans were not weak, but the consequences of this display were unpredictable. One wrong move, one impulsive decision from him or his guards, and the assembly could erupt into chaos. She had to remain calm, precise, and ready. For the first time, Hale felt fear, not the fear of death, but the fear of being underestimated, of having his control questioned by a species he considered inferior. That fear was dangerous, and Laura Bennett had planted it deliberately. The hall seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. And in that moment, the entire galaxy, watching through communications or whispers, would begin to realize something profound. Humans were not to be ignored. Not anymore. Laura's stance, calm but unyielding, had changed the course of the assembly, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The moment had arrived when defiance became more powerful than obedience, and the Galactic Empire, for all its centuries of power, was forced to see what humanity could do when pushed too far. The moment had passed, but its impact rippled across the galaxy. News of what happened in the Galactic Assembly spread faster than anyone could have imagined. General Lavra Bennett had not only defied Emperor Victor Hale, she had exposed a weakness that no one expected. Every corner of the Empire trembled with uncertainty. In the Imperial Council chambers, advisors whispered nervously. "She cannot be allowed to continue," said one, his voice shaking. "A single human has humiliated the Emperor in front of everyone. What message does that send to our allies?" Another replied, "The humans have always been underestimated. Perhaps too much. This changes everything." Hal remained silent, seated on his throne, his face tight with anger and disbelief. No one dared approach him. The Emperor had ruled through fear for centuries, but that fear was now mutual. Even his closest officers saw the truth. a human could stand against him and survive. Across the galaxy, worlds under imperial control reacted in secret. On several planets, subjugated species whispered among themselves, quietly celebrating what they had long hoped for. For years, they had endured imperial rule, expecting mercy to never come and rebellion to be crushed. Now, one human's courage showed them that the Empire was not invincible. Back in human space, Admiral Kevin Moore received the news with a mixture of relief and awe. "Lovra did exactly what I hoped she would," he said, pacing the floor of the command room. "She showed them we are not weak. We are not to be underestimated." Commander Daniel Brooks watched quietly. He had been with Lovra for years, and he understood her in ways few did. "It's more than that," he said. "She didn't just fight the Emperor. She changed the way the galaxy sees us." On Earth, people everywhere followed the broadcasts. Children whispered her name with awe, teachers told her story in classrooms, and soldiers felt a surge of pride they had never experienced before. Lovra Bennett had become a symbol not just of military strength, but of human courage, determination, and resilience. Back in the Imperial Assembly, the mood remained tense. Hale's advisors debated what to do next. Some urged immediate retaliation, arguing that letting Lovra live would encourage other humans to rise. Others counseled caution, warning that a hasty move could spark rebellion across countless worlds. "You cannot strike her," one advisor warned. "If she survives, the galaxy will rally behind her. If you kill her, she becomes a martyr. Either way, we risk losing control." Hale's hand tightened on the arm of his throne. He had faced rebellion before, but never a rebellion that was so personal, so immediate, and so undeniable. The strength of one human had forced him into hesitation, rare and dangerous state for an emperor who ruled by certainty. Meanwhile, intelligence reports began to filter in. Spies and scouts reported shifts in loyalty across the Empire. Some worlds had quietly refused to enforce orders. Others had secretly begun supporting Earth's fleets. The message was clear. One act of courage could ignite change far beyond what anyone imagined. Lovra herself remained calm, even as her position became more precarious. She knew retaliation was possible. She knew that the Empire could attempt to capture or eliminate her at any moment. But she also knew that humanity's survival depended on her restraint, her control, and her ability to show strength without unnecessary violence. "We must be careful," she told Brooks as they moved through a secure human corridor. "The Empire is shaken, but they are not defeated. We have to plan our next steps carefully." Brooks nodded. "They'll try to rebuild their power. Some of their allies will want revenge. But right now they are afraid." Even in the vastness of space, the effects of that fear spread. Alien worlds that had once complied out of habit began to reconsider their loyalties. Trade agreements were questioned. Military outposts hesitated to act against humans. The balance of power had shifted, and it all began with a single act of defiance. On several planets, human diplomats met with former imperial allies. They spoke cautiously, but with new confidence. Laura's actions had given humans credibility in negotiations that had once been impossible. These meetings would lay the groundwork for alliances that could rival the Empire itself. Back in the imperial capital, Hale finally rose from his throne. His face was pale, his eyes cold. He would not forget what happened in the assembly hall. Every decision from now on would be shaped by one truth. Humans could not be controlled by fear alone. He ordered an emergency council meeting with his top generals. "We must reassess everything," he said. "Prepare all fleets. Do not underestimate humans again. They are dangerous. More dangerous than we believed." The room was tense. No one had expected the Emperor to admit such vulnerability, even indirectly. But the fact remained. The galaxy had shifted in one moment, and everyone felt it dot in human space. Lavra and her team continued preparations. While celebrations were quiet, disciplined planning was constant. They understood that one act of defiance could inspire hope, but hope alone would not win wars or protect humanity. They needed strategy, alliances, and careful diplomacy. Still, Lavra allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. She thought of her people, of Earth, and of the countless humans who had lived with courage in the face of adversity. "We will be ready," she said softly. "The galaxy has seen what humans can do. Now, they will see what we are willing to defend." The ripple effects were already visible. Alien worlds once loyal to the Empire sent envoys to human space. Secret communications revealed that factions within the Empire itself were questioning the Emperor's decisions. One moment of courage had sparked a chain reaction across thousands of star systems. And for the first time in centuries, the Empire realized it was no longer untouchable dot in the quiet of her command room. Lavra looked out at the stars. Each light represented a world that could be an ally or an enemy. Each system was part of a galaxy that had underestimated humanity for far too long. She had changed that perception, and now her work was only beginning. Commander Brooks joined her at the observation window. "You've shaken them," he said. "Not just the Emperor, but the whole galaxy. They won't forget this." Lavra nodded. "They won't, and we won't either. We have to use this carefully. We have to be ready for whatever comes next." The galaxy had entered a new phase. The Empire had been shaken, allies had wavered, and humans had proven that courage and intelligence could rival even the most powerful forces in the universe. The moment of defiance had passed, but its consequences were only beginning. From that day forward, stories of the woman general who faced the Emperor without fear spread across star systems. In whispers and broadcasts, humans and aliens alike spoke of Lavra Bennett, not just as a general, but as a symbol that one act of courage could change the galaxy dot, and somewhere deep within the Empire, Victor Hawley considered his next move, knowing that the days of unquestioned dominance were over. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire faced uncertainty. Lavra knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had changed, and now she had to make sure humanity was ready to face whatever came next. The ripple from one bold act of defiance had grown into waves that would reach every corner of the stars. The galaxy had changed. The Assembly Hall incident with Emperor Victor Hall had become more than a story. It was a turning point. Across star systems, humans and aliens alike whispered about the general who had stood without fear, the woman who had challenged the Emperor and survived. General Lavra Bennett returned to human space aboard a secure transport fleet. Though celebrations were muted, the mood among Earth's commanders and diplomats was electric. They knew that the Empire had been shaken, that alliances were being reconsidered, and that humanity's position among the stars had changed forever. Admiral Kevin Moore greeted her at the command center. "You did what no one else could," he said, his voice steady but full of pride. "You showed them that humanity isn't just a minor species. We're a force to be reckoned with." Lavra nodded. "It wasn't about proving power," she said. "It was about showing that we cannot be ignored, and that courage and planning matter more than fear or intimidation." Commander Daniel Brooks stood nearby, observing quietly. He had seen Lavra face countless dangers in simulations and in battle, but this was different. This was not a physical fight. It was a demonstration of human will against an empire that thought it could dominate through fear. And she had done it perfectly. The political consequences were already unfolding. Former imperial allies began approaching Earth for talks, offering trade agreements, defensive pacts, and intelligence-sharing arrangements. Many of these worlds had long suffered under imperial rule and now saw an opportunity for independence. or at least for alignment with a stronger, more capable human fleet. Diplomatic envoys were busy drafting agreements, but Lavra insisted on careful planning. "We have momentum," she told Brooks, "but we cannot let pride or impatience ruin this. Every step we take now must be calculated. One mistake could turn hope into chaos." Meanwhile, on the Empire's capital worlds, debates raged. Emperor Hale's authority had been challenged publicly, and while he still commanded armies, the perception of invincibility had vanished. Generals and governors whispered in secret, questioning whether his leadership could continue without shaking further rebellions. Some feared humanity more than they feared internal dissent. Laura's influence reached even into the thoughts of ordinary humans back on Earth. Children learned of her courage in school. Teachers told her story as an example of bravery and intelligence. Soldiers who had once doubted their abilities found renewed confidence. The story of standing unmoved in the face of an emperor became a symbol of what humans could accomplish when they refused to yield to fear. In the fleet's command center, Lavra reflected on the broader implications. "Courage is not the absence of fear," she said. "It's the ability to act even when fear is present. That is what humanity showed today." Brooks nodded. "And now the galaxy knows it. They will think twice before underestimating humans again." Lavra considered the coming years. She knew the Empire would try to recover, to regain control, and to punish those who had supported human defiance. But she also knew that Earth's fleets and alliances had gained a reputation that could not be erased overnight. Intelligence reports indicated that some imperial worlds were quietly refusing orders, while others considered reaching out for secret alliances. Her thoughts drifted to the soldiers and civilians who had placed their trust in her leadership. Every decision she made from now on had to balance caution with assertiveness, diplomacy with readiness for conflict. A single misstep could undo months of careful work. Despite the pressure, she allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. The galaxy had begun to see humanity not as weak or minor, but as capable, intelligent, and resilient. That perception shift was priceless. It could inspire generations. Not only on Earth, but across multiple systems. At night, Lavra often walked alone on the observation deck of her flagship, looking out at the countless stars. Each star represented a world with its own people, its own choices, and its own future. The galaxy had changed because one human had acted with courage and clarity. And now, every decision she made would ripple outward, influencing the fates of thousands of planets. One evening, Brooks joined her. "You've done something remarkable," he said quietly. "You didn't just survive. You changed the course of history." Lavra looked at him, her expression calm but serious. "I didn't do it for glory," she replied. "I did it to show what humanity is capable of. If the galaxy learns anything from today, it should be that courage and careful planning can challenge even the most powerful forces." Meanwhile, across the stars, whispers of Lavra Bennett reached young cadets, diplomats and soldiers from every corner of human space. They dreamed of emulating her discipline, her bravery, and her ability to stand unmoved in the face of overwhelming power. Stories of her defiance spread far and wide, giving hope to those who felt small or powerless. Even the Emperor could not escape her influence. Hale remained in his throne room, contemplating the future. Every strategic decision, every military maneuver, now carried the memory of one human who had defied him. He realized that humans could no longer be ignored, underestimated, or dismissed. And that realization unsettled him more than any fleet or weapon could. Back in Earth's command center, Lavra prepared for the next phase. She knew that stories and symbols alone could not secure humanity's place among the stars. Practical steps were necessary, strengthening defenses, forming alliances, and training the next generation of leaders who would carry forward the lessons of courage and strategy she had demonstrated. Admiral Moore observed her quietly. "You've done more than fight," he said. "You've shown what it means to lead." Lavra nodded. "Leadership isn't about power," she said. "It's about responsibility, about making decisions that protect people and inspire them to act with integrity and courage. That is what will carry humanity forward." Months passed. The galaxy slowly adjusted to the new reality. Alliances were formed, trade agreements negotiated, and fleets repositioned. Humanity had gained a reputation it had never held before, not because of size or firepower, but because of courage, intelligence, and restraint. On Earth, stories of the Assembly Hall incident were recorded in history books. Children learned of the general who faced the emperor and stood unbroken. Scholars analyzed her actions, emphasizing the combination of discipline, skill, and moral courage. Soldiers trained to emulate her calm decisiveness under pressure. And in the quiet moments, Lavra Bennett looked at the stars and knew that her work was far from over. The galaxy had shifted, but the future was still uncertain. New challenges would come, new empires would rise, and new threats would test humanity. But one thing was clear: humans would no longer be underestimated. Not ever again. Her legacy was already beginning. She had proven that courage, intelligence, and careful planning could rival even the most powerful forces in the universe. And for generations to come, humans would remember that one woman had changed the galaxy with a single act of defiance. The story of Lavra Bennett became a symbol of hope, courage, and determination. A reminder that one person, standing firm with skill and conviction, could make the impossible possible. And as humanity looked to the stars, ready to shape its own destiny, the galaxy would never forget the woman who refused to kneel. The galaxy had entered a new era, one in which humans would be recognized not for what they were told to fear, but for what they had proven they could achieve. And Lavra Bennett, the general who had shattered the Emperor's illusion of control, would always be remembered as the spark that changed everything.